over the last 20 years, the microchip industry has shut down more than 780 manufacturing plants in the United States and eliminated 150,000 American jobs while moving most of its production overseas after receiving over $9.5 billion in government subsidies and loans, writes Senator Bernie Sanders in today's Guardian. Senator Sanders is on the line with us. Senator, welcome back to the program. So what's up with this program to invest, to try to bring chip manufacturing back to the United States?
Well, Tom, when you want to know why the vast majority of the American people are so disgusted with corporate-controlled status quo politics, this is exactly the reason why. As you have just indicated, over the last 20 years, you have an industry which shut down hundreds and hundreds of plants in America.
Sean.
Last year, I think the top 5 companies, Intel and Texas Instruments and the other, combined made something like $70 billion in profits. So you have an industry that threw American workers out on the street, moved abroad, today is very profitable. And you know what the United States Congress is about to do next week? The Senate is about to vote on a $52 billion blank check, no strings attached, no demands, no protections for the American people, going to a handful of large microchip companies, begging them, bribing them, please don't leave America. Here's a check for $52 billion. That is pathetic, and I certainly am going to vote against that legislation.
Yeah, it seems like a variation on what Walmart has been doing to us for 40 years. You know, sure, we'll open a store in your community. Just give us a 20-year tax abatement and $1 million.
Right. I mean, it is. What's even uglier about that is that there is no debate, certainly not on my part, that we have a serious crisis in terms of microchips. Microchips, the very sophisticated microchips, are the future of the world's economy. We need them for automobiles. You need them for the military. You need them for healthcare. They are very, very important. And yet you have companies, and we hear from the military how important it is, you know, for our defense. Mm-hmm. And yet you have companies that are saying essentially, if you do not give us a blank check, corporate welfare, we're going to leave this country, and to hell with the military, to hell with the healthcare industry, to hell with the economy. What's most important is our profit margin.
So what's the alternative?
I think that, pardon me?
What's the alternative? What should we be doing?
The alternative is to say to them, fine, let's do industrial policy. Now, industrial policy means that in certain circumstances, you want the government to be working with the private sector. And the private sector has a right to make a profit. The government has a right to gain its interest. In this case, we want microchip manufacturing done in the United States so our economy is strong and we are protecting the needs of working families. That's a legitimate concern of the government. But you don't simply give a blank check to an industry which has shown its contempt for the American people and the United States in years past. You sit down with them and you say, okay, listen, we're going to give you money. But you know what? If you make money, if you make profits as a result of this, which they certainly will, unless I'm very mistaken, you're going to share those profits with the American people. Right. Oh, and by the way, if there is an effort to organize a union in your industry or in your company, you're not going to oppose that. And by the way, you're not going to do stock buybacks with this money. You're not going to use taxpayer dollars to simply give it to your wealthy stockholders.
Right.
So there are strings that you put onto that legislation which benefits not just the companies, but the American people as well.
Yeah, it seems like an entirely reasonable way to do it. And I mean, that was the basis of a lot of FDR's policies and even some of LBJ's, wasn't it?
It's the basis of what we did during the pandemic. All of these things that I am asking for were passed unanimously in the CARES Act.
Yeah, there you go.
So it's, you don't just give money away without protecting taxpayers, without protecting the needs of working families. But it is what this is about, Tom, and I know I'm speaking to the choir here because you have been talking about this for decades. What you're looking at is a rigged economy in which the very rich are getting much richer. This, once again, with this particular industry, they're doing phenomenally well.
Yeah.
Their profits are very, very high. They don't need a blank check corporate bailout. But in general, what you're seeing in America today is the people on top billionaire class doing phenomenally well. They made some $2 billion. They saw a $2 trillion increase in wealth during the pandemic, while working families are falling further and further behind. You're looking at an unprecedented level of corporate greed. While the price of gas is in decline right now, it is outrageously high at the same exact time as the oil companies are making huge profits. Food prices are high at the same time as food companies are making huge profits. And what all of this is about is the stranglehold that big money has on both political parties.
Yeah. Now
and that is something that we have got to continue working on. This is not what democracy is about. This is a corrupt political system. It's a rigged economy. It's there to benefit the very rich at the expense of the middle class and working families.
Yeah, as Jimmy Carter said on this program, we are rapidly becoming an oligarchy rather than a democracy, and it's not a good thing.
We're there. We're there. You know, it's a funny thing. And tied into that is a corporate media, which is owned by these guys.
Yeah.
So, you're looking at a situation, and, we don't sit down and have the kind of discussion that we need to have. Does anybody really think, anyone listening to this program, that it is appropriate that 3 people in America own more wealth than the bottom 50% of people in this country? 3 people.
Wow.
That the top 1% owns more wealth than the bottom 92%? That in industry after industry you have a handful, whether it is Wall Street, in Wall Street right now, and I'm sure you have talked about it, but the corporate media doesn't. You got 3 Wall Street firms, BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard, who control assets of over $20 trillion.
It's greater than the GDP of the United States.
That's the GDP of the United States.
Right.
3 Wall Street firms. They are the major stockholders in hundreds of companies, including the major banks in America. So what you got, President Carter was wrong. It's not that we're moving to an oligarchy. We are there.
Yeah, well,
we are there right now.
This was about 8 years ago that he said that. Yeah, but I'm with you.
He was right then.
So
we're there, and they control. And then you look at what's going on politically today. You have groups like AIPAC and other super PACs putting in huge amounts of money to defeat progressives who are running for Congress in in Democratic primaries. So the issue of the moment is how we address the greed and the power of the billionaire class and large corporations who are very religious people, Tom, but their religion is greed.
Yeah.
And you got 150 billion. That's not enough. They want 200 billion. They got 18% profits. That ain't enough. They need 25%. On and on it goes. So, these are tough times. And I know a lot of people are demoralized, are discouraged. We're not dealing with climate change. We're not dealing with the attack on women's rights and abortion rights. We're not dealing with the gun violence in this country. We're not dealing with the health care crisis. So people are frustrated. But I think we just got to keep plowing forward, maintain with pride the agenda that we are fighting for, which is the agenda that working families in this country want and need.
Amen. Now, I know you've been working as chairman of the Budget Committee in the Senate, one of the most powerful committees there, with the Biden administration very closely, and this kind of Build Back Better version 2 that was going to try and Joe Manchin came out yesterday and just stuck a knife in your back, it seems to me. I'm curious.
Well, he didn't stick a knife in my back. I was talking 6 months ago. I knew exactly what he was doing. Manchin has received, if I'm not mistaken, something like campaign funds from something like 25 Republican billionaires. So I am not shocked by what he is doing. The difficulty is that, the Democrats, we only have 50 people in the Democratic caucus. We managed, and I worked very hard on this, to pass the American Rescue Plan, which in my view is one of the most consequential pieces of legislation ever passed and helped us get out of that terrible, terrible economic situation and pandemic that we were in. But we could not hold on to 50 people to go forward with Build Back Better. Yeah. And the result of the sabotage of Manchin and Sinema is that after we passed Build Back Better, President Biden's favorability rates were 59%. The American people said, yeah, thank you. We're dealing with a pandemic. We've lost our jobs. Thank you for the extended unemployment. Thank you for the child care. Thank you for the child tax credits, which lowered child poverty in this country by something like 50%. Thank you for the direct payment of $1,400 when we desperately needed per person in this country. Thank you for all of those things. You're doing what the American people want. And Biden was very popular. Congress was doing well. And then you had Manchin and Sinema saying, oh, wait a minute. Why are we offending corporate America? Why are we going forward, asking the rich and large corporations to start paying their fair share of taxes? That's not what they do. They get funded by these large pharmaceutical companies, fossil fuel companies, billionaires. That's not what they do. So it should have been recognized 6 months ago that we're not going to make any progress.
We need more Democratic senators. Senator, we have just 60 seconds until we hit a hard break I can't control. You know this show. Thoughts as we move forward on where we should be focusing our activism to help support the kind of work you're doing?
Well, you got an election coming up. It would be a disaster for the Republicans to gain control over the Senate or the House. It's important that we elect as many progressives as possible. So if you are in a district where a progressive is running for Congress, please give him or her the help that they desperately need.
Yeah, and there's some good progressives out there who are running.
We have elected some great progressives.
Yeah.
Summer Lee in Pennsylvania comes to mind. Delia Ramirez in Chicago, Jonathan Jackson in the Chicago area. We're electing some great progressive leaders.
Yeah, and you're absolutely one of them. Senator Bernie Sanders, thanks so much for dropping by and for raising these issues and keeping them on the in the consciousness of America. It's so critical, and you're doing such great work. Thank you, Senator.
Well, thank you for the great work you do, Tom.
Back at you.
Talk to you soon.
Thank you, Senator.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.